Yeah, and again, the decision to go with Heat Crash there really put Gouging Fire, which should naturally have a great matchup into Metagross, at a disadvantage. You saw that. I don't know if it's sitting at +1 after all those howls. I think it's about +1, and still doing maybe 30% to that Metagross with a super effective stab move.
Yeah, so as I said, Aaron gonna have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what went wrong in that game. He did learn valuable information, well, both players learned valuable information of, hey, we are speed tying our big dragon gouging fires. Zach recognizes that he can't go for the first one. He's gonna go for the gouging fire. Not gonna do a ton of damage, actually. As Aaron now hovering over Howl and Burning Bulwark to try to avoid some sucker punches, knowing that Ice Spinner is not necessarily safe for Zach because the contact is going to do into the Burning Bulwark.
Yeah, you know, this game is not quite over. If Aaron can pull off the mind games right here, if Aaron gets a Burning Bulwark prediction right and Shenpao hits the Ice Spinner into it, then Zach is going to get burned, and that could open up the opportunity to Howl. But it looks like Zach gets the call right immediately. Goes in with the Ice Spinner, again, risking that burn, but he made the right call, and it was enough to take game one.
Yeah. So I think Zach played a very good game there, recognizing, or actually making a really good play when Fluttermane initially hitting the field, knowing, hey, my Sucker Punch is going to do a lot, Stomping Tantrum can easily finish it off, and I can cover for that switch option, or if he stays in, I'm probably going to be getting that KO. And I know that with my Assault Vest, I don't think Fluttermane should be taking me out with a Shadow Ball.
Exactly. I think the confidence to be able to live that hit with the Assault Vest, and also knowing that Gouging Fire wasn't really threatening Metagross at all, just let the Metagross, it gave it the cushion to make that play, skewed the risk-reward in the favor of making the read, and he was able to get it right and deal a big chunk of damage with that Stomping Tantrum.
So interestingly enough, Zach did not bring his Dragonite for priority, instead opting for the Ogerpon Wellspring, while Aaron left his Ogerpon back at home, but brought the Urshifu for the big hits. And we actually see Aaron make a bit of an adjustment, knowing that his Gouging Fire is speed tying, and saying, maybe I should adjust and get that speed advantage and force him into going for priority moves, which I can navigate around.
Yeah, and Zach, as was mentioned, did not bring the Dragonite into the last matchup. So if that remains the same, then maybe Aaron could get himself a little bit of an advantage by bringing this Tornadus and making sure that he moves first. We did get some interesting information on the damage output of this Urshifu right away. It's Focus Sash, not Choice Band, and so you could see that even after the Howl boost, that Terra Dark Wicked Blow, Gouging Fire was still able to survive that hit, and that let it continue to disrupt from Zach's side.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to see how this one plays out. I think Aaron recognizing, hey, Zach is in a position where Dragonite is really threatened by Gouging Fire. That's one of its number one things, is you can see what Dragonite locks into, go for the Burning Bulwark, burn it if it wants to target you, and if it doesn't, you can throw out that Breaking Swipe, and that's, unlike Intimidate, not ignored by Inner Focus. So we are going to see the lead of Tornadus and Urshifu on Aaron's side, and actually a switch of the lead, leaving Ogerpon maybe in the back, maybe back at home, and we see the lead of Fluttermane, which Urshifu doesn't really want to see.
Yeah, you know, Urshifu staring down a Fluttermane is always an interesting game, especially when right now the speed control is in Aaron's hands, and so Wicked Blow into the Fluttermane could take it out, unless, of course, the Fluttermane opts to go for Terra Fairy. That also requires a Tailwind from Aaron's side. So a lot of factors here that Zach could really take into account when deciding on his move.
Yeah, so Aaron here pretty free to go for a speed control move. Urshifu could go for a damage, could go for a protect here. Gonna do a lot into the Fluttermane, but probably doesn't want to have its sash broken by the Breaking Swipe, plus the Tranquil Dazzle being born into the glass. We are going to see a Terra on Zach's side of the field into the Fluttermane, not going to want to take full damage from those Dark type moves, and instead resist them.
Yeah, here comes the Terra Fairy. It's going to have the secondary effect of increasing its fairy damaging moves to obscene levels. We're going to get an interesting read here, especially if Zach ends up going for Dazzling Gleam, to see how Aaron's Tornadus is trained and how well it can take the move. Yep, here it comes out. Urshifu's going to protect itself, so it's going to leave the sash intact. Zach went for the double target of the Urshifu, so that was an excellent protect. And here comes the Dazzling Gleam of the Tornadus. It's going to take that very comfortably. And here comes the Icy Wind, double connect, lowering both of the speeds, and crucially, postponing the Tailwind for another turn. That could come back big later on.
Absolutely. So Aaron masterfully putting himself in a spot where he can take more advantage of his Tailwind turns while maintaining Urshifu's sash and not wasting a turn going for Protect. In this generation, you really don't want to be going for Protect next to Tailwind unless you have a pretty solid reason. And Aaron making the adjustment to switch out into Metagross, knowing he's extremely threatened by the Fluttermane, and the Fluttermane is, I believe, locked in due to the choice specs. So being able to get that Metagross in very easily, as Gouging Fire goes for the Heat Crash onto Metagross, not going to be taking too much damage thanks to the base power adjustment based on weight. Corner is going to go down here, but if I'm Aaron, that's kind of a position I want to be in. I got the usefulness of the Tornadus that I needed, and now I can bring back in my offense.
Yeah, that's when Tornadus goes down the same turn it clicks Tailwind, a lot of the time that's still a pretty good thing for the Tornadus player. And here comes Urshifu ready to just start opening up its Terra and unleashing those wicked blows. You really saw again, now the shoe is on the other foot here with the interaction between Metagross and Heat Crash. Last game it was Zach benefiting from it, and here is Aaron, where knowing that he's staring down a Fluttermane and a Gouging Fire, Metagross is a pretty nice switch in there, takes under half from a double target.
So Urshifu's going to go for its Terra here, going to want to be throwing out as much damage as it possibly can. Likely going to be going for a Wicked Blow into that Gouging Fire, as a Heavy Slam is going to be going into that Fluttermane. Wicked Blow, as we saw from the first game, not going to do a huge amount thanks to Gouging Fire's immense physical pull, because Fluttermane is going to take an easy being knocked out, not take a knockout. So if I had a guess, I'd probably be seeing a Heat Crash come out here, take out that focus action, actually do a lot more than I anticipated. I guess Urshifu's not as heavy as I thought. It is just a bear.
Yeah.
And Chien-Pao coming out going to allow both of these Pokemon to do a lot more damage, but with Aaron having the speed advantage here, going to be pretty solid, as this Chien-Pao now has to play around with a Terra, which it doesn't have access to, so let me take that back. But being slower than both of these Pokemon, Metagross is able to throw out a Bullet Punch to, like if this Metagross is trained to be fast enough, outspeed the Sucker Punch, while Urshifu threatens a clean close combat knockout, and also threatens a KO on this Gouging Fire thanks to Wicked Blow, and is not going to be knocked out by Chien-Pao or Gouging Fire. It doesn't have to worry about the burning.
Yeah, I think the key interaction here is the speed tiers, and it looks like Metagross is going to attack first. We'll see if the Chien-Pao went for a Sucker Punch. It did not. So Zach, either possibly knowing how Aaron's Metagross was trained, or just saying, hey, you know what, I can take this Bullet Punch, I have my Focus Sash intact, it's only going to do half. We'll see. He goes for the Sacred Sword into Urshifu and takes it out. And now Aaron is down to what I believe is his last turn of Tailwind. We'll see if Zach just double protects to get out of that and puts Metagross in a Sucker Punch pin.
Yeah, so Aaron's Gouging Fire is going to come out here, threatening a KO on this Chien-Pao, and looking pretty against this Metagross, especially thanks to the fact that Zach's Metagross is forced to attack thanks to the Assault Vest. So if Aaron just goes for a Burning Bulwark at any point against the Metagross, unless Zach's Metagross side targets, it is going to have to take a burn.
Yeah, and it looks like Zach's Metagross does not have any physical options that do not make contact. So if this does come down to a 1v1 in the Burning Bulwark versus, or not the Burning Bulwark, the Gouging Fire against Metagross matchup, then it's a free burn for Aaron. And you know, here comes that Heat Crash. As we saw last game, it's not going to do a lot of damage at all, but it looks like this Metagross is going to have to take a burn next turn, or not even, because Aaron's Metagross survives the hit, and now it's a 2v1, and it looks like we're heading to Game 3.
Yeah, Aaron not wasting any time there, just throwing out the Bullet Punch, saying, even if you protect, I don't really care. I have a Gouging Fire. It's not Entei. That is Gouging Fire from 1,000 years ago. Aaron going for the Stomping Tantrum, outspeeding the opposing Metagross, doing a ton of damage there thanks to the Howl. As Zach's Metagross is going to go for Stomping Tantrum, not even doing 50% of that Gouging Fire. That is a really bulky Pokemon.
Yeah, and you can really tell the difference in the way these gouging fires and Metagrosses are trained. Zach's Heat Crash into Aaron's Metagross doing about 30-35%, and Aaron's Heat Crash into Zach's Metagross doing significantly less. I don't remember if Sword of Ruin was on the field. It may have been.
It may have been.
But regardless, you can see how just tanky this gouging fire is. And Aaron saving that for the end game was an excellent decision. And that's what's going to end up taking us to Game 3.
Yeah, so Zach making the change there of bringing Fluttermane instead of Ogerpon, it definitely helped apply pressure in the beginning, but being locked in by specs and just having to take a heavy slam without a great switch in kind of put Zach on the back foot afterward. You know, Aaron making a very clean switch into Metagross after Protect, and I'm really curious to see how the trainers adapt going into a Game 3, where Aaron brought his Tornadus last time to get some speed control, which definitely helped his Metagross get those bullet punches out before Chien-Pao could move, was very important. But we'll see if he returns to that, really contemplating his fourth option here.
I think if I'm Zach in this situation, I want to get a little bit more out of my Terra this game. He Terra'd turn 1 to avoid the possibility of taking a KO from Urshifu's Wicked Blow, but instead Aaron just ended up protecting. And all the Terra did was add a little bit more chip damage to the Tornadus and a little bit more chip damage to the Metagross that switched in. And then right after that, it just dropped to the Fluttermane. So I think if I'm Zach, I want to be a little bit smarter with my Terra, maybe save it for the end game. When you can mess around with some of the tight matchups and turn an unfavorable situation into a favorable one.
Yeah, I also think Zach not bringing Ogerpon last game when he knew it outssped Urshifu, wasn't taking anything super effective from Metagross, wasn't taking super effective from Gouging Fire, but definitely having to worry about Breaking Swipes. The only way that Aaron can hit that Ogerpon super effectively is with Bleak Windstorm, and as we were discussing, or rather as you were saying, Zach kind of having to play with his Terra this time, and I wouldn't be surprised to see an Ogerpon Terra in this game.
That is a very good point. With that Terra Water not only giving it the special defense boost, which would really only come into play if it was facing down the Fluttermane, but really what that does is it messes with Ogerpon's weaknesses and resistances. Removing the grass typing can be really huge for giving it a resistance rather than the neutrality to the Gouging Fire's Heat Crash. Looks like right now we're seeing 2 Gouging Fires and a Metagross facing down an Urshifu. If I'm this Urshifu, I am loving how this is looking right now.
Yeah, so the Urshifu allowed to threaten a ton of damage here, but Zach obviously having his option to Terra, and we can reveal that Metagross is a Fairy Terra. So gonna have to be pretty respectful of that Terra on Aaron's end. But he can just throw out a Wicked Blow, see how much damage it does. I believe we saw Aaron go for the Howl, so even if it's not very effective, probably still threatening a 2-hit KO.
Yeah, I don't think anything really wants to take a +1 Terra Dark Wicked Blow. At least it's not holding a choice band, but still, this is going to do a lot of damage. So we'll see Aaron throwing out the Terra turn 1, and now we will see if the Metagross will return the favor.
Yeah, so Urshifu going to be moving for it with the Terra.
And there it is.
We do see the Terra come out on Zach's end. If I'm a betting man, and yesterday I wasn't very good with my bets, I would have won a bet here, finally, 1 for 3 across 2 days. This is why I don't gamble. Metagross coming out with that Fairy Terror, getting the beautiful heart on its head to let it know how lovely it is. As a Howl coming out from Aaron's Gouging Fire, going to boost the attack of both those Pokemon. Wouldn't be shocked to see this reset. Ooh, but it's
and there's
not,
another
as
Howl.
we see a very aggressive Howl from Zach's side. Going for Howl on to his own Metagross and Gouging Fire.
Now we'll see how much damage this +1 Wicked Blow does. I'm guessing about 40%, and it's a little closer to 45. That's
49.
a lot of damage. Yeah, it's just a couple pixels above half. Here comes the Heavy Slam. That's going to take Urshifu almost down to the sash. And now if it wants to get any damage off, it better Sucker Punch. Otherwise, this Gouging Fire is going to take it out.
Yeah, so a Breaking Swipe coming out from Aaron's here at the moment. Gonna be doing damage to that Gouging Fire, not the Metagross. As Urshifu's pretty free to protect here, you know, no Urshifu on the other side of the map. So Aaron in a bit of a precarious spot where his biggest damage dealer is now down to just one small pick-off doing enough damage And Gouging Fire, as we have been discussing, not being able to do a lot of damage to that Metagross, especially now that it's Terra Fairy, barely going to be doing any. As the Sucker Punch does come out into the Gouging Fire
that
on
did a
Zach's
lot of
end,
damage.
gonna do half. Thanks to that +1 boost, we see the Breaking Swipe from Zach's coming out first, gonna do nearly half to that Gouging Fire. And we're probably going to see that retaliating Breaking Swipe trying to get the knockout onto the opposing Gouging Fire. Not going to do anything to that Metagross thanks to the Terra Fairy. And even if it wasn't Terra Fairy, it would not have had its attack drop thanks to Clear Body. Stomping Tantrum going to Gouging Fire is going to be enough for a two-hit knockout with the Breaking Swipe.
And man, talk about a tale of two Terra Fairies. Last game, Zach going for the Terra Fairy on the Flutter main. As I said earlier, not getting a lot of mileage out of it. This time, it was the perfect opportunity to Terra Fairy the Metagross, turn from a guaranteed OPO from that Wicked Blow into a strong resistance, being immune to Breaking Swipe, taking peanuts from Heat Crash. This Metagross was just in such a strong position, and as a result, Zach is ending up with a 4v2.
Yeah, so Aaron going for a Bullet Punch here, gonna hope it takes out that Metagross thanks to the Terra, and it is not enough damage as the opposing Bullet Punch is likely going to be able to pick up a one-shot on this Flutter main here, and due to not having Terra, this Gouging Fire going to be able to do super effective damage with its Heat Crash, although it is at neutral, I believe, from one Breaking Swipe and one health. Not doing a ton of damage, but not looking good for Aaron in a 1v4 situation, where there's likely a Chim-Pow in back, as we saw. You know, Aaron just not having the sustainability to close this, or clutch this one out, as Zach is likely going to close it out in a few more turns of doing damage.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting matchup here because of the interaction between Metagross and Gouging Fire, and that really dictated how a lot of these games were to be played. Because when you have the two Pokemon just kind of sit on each other, they have this really awkward interaction where one can't really touch another. The Metagross is afraid of the Burning Bulwark. Even the super effective Heat Crash does, is maybe a 3-hit KO depending on how the Pokemon's trained. And so just being able to swap out the teammates around the Metagross and the Gouging Fire was what ended up putting Zach in a position to win Game 3 and ultimately take the set.
Yeah.